I was asked later, do you trust Putin? I didn't want to plagiarize President Reagan. I gave one of the great responses: trust but verify. And I wasn't quick enough to think of anything clever that didn't sound like plagiarism. So I said, yeah. I generally didn't criticize leaders in public. I didn't like it when I'd been criticized by these leaders. And so I was, would kind of hold my fire till I was in private. But I had said prior to the meeting that I was disappointed in some of the decisions that Vladimir Putin had made, particularly with the press. And in our private meeting, he said, what do you object to? I said, well, I really object to you closing down independent media. He said, you do the same thing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you fired the famous newsman. And it kind of took me aback. I wasn't sure he was talking to, and then it dawned on me. He was talking about Dan Rather. And I said, surely you're not talking about Dan Rather. And he said, yeah. I said, well, Vladimir, whatever you do, don't say that publicly, because the American people will think you really don't understand our system, since Dan Rather didn't work for the government. He worked for a private newscast organization. You remember, this is all about when he forged the documents, or he didn't forge them. He used forged documents to try to affect the election, my re-election. And anyway, so I said, Vladimir, don't talk about that. We get to the press conference. The question from the Russian reporter was, Mr. Putin, President Putin, did you bring up the fact that President Bush fired the famous newsman?